3 of San Diego Startup Week. To start out, I'd like to just take a moment to recognize and acknowledge the sponsors who've made this Startup Week possible across the region and enabled us to have this great venue that we're presenting at today. And what a great opportunity to really share best practices so that entrepreneurs across the San Diego region can accelerate commercial traction for their businesses. Before I get into our presentation, just to get calibrated with the audience, by show of hands, how many of you right now are working for or with a Cleantech company? Okay, a couple, and then and how many of you are thinking about launching a Cleantech business? Okay, so nobody, okay, some maybes. Let me congratulate those of you who are and who are thinking about it, because I can't think of a better market that's more ripe for disruption than the energy and clean tech industry, driven by customer demand for decarbonization, decentralization, and digitization. And besides that, we're here in California where greenhouse gas reduction is actually the law of the land. So there's actually a tailwind pushing this to go forward. So fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a very exciting decade or more going forward in the energy and clean tech industry, driven by these changes. I'm Marty Turok. I lead strategic projects for Cleantech San Diego. I'll be the moderator today, and we have 3 panelists with energy clean tech startups. Dan Poirier from Nativis, Cyrus Rustamji from South 8 Technologies, and Jonathan Knight from Uprise Energy. Just by way of background, the parent organization that I work for, Cleantech San Diego, is a not-for-profit trade association for the clean tech industry, founded back in 2007. And our mission is to accelerate adoption of best practices in sustainability and smart cities, not only for the improvement of the environment and for our local citizens, but also to create another local economic development engine for the San Diego region. About 3 years ago, the California Energy Commission recognized that even though California and Californians are early adopters of a lot of the new emerging energy technologies, when you extrapolate even those current adoption rates, we don't get to the energy and greenhouse gas targets that have already been established for 2030 and beyond. They realized they needed to do something out of the box, and they put their money where their mouth was, allocating about $60 million to create what they're calling an energy innovation ecosystem, and that's funded for 5 years. At the heart of that ecosystem are 4 energy incubators. I lead the Southern California Energy Innovation Network with our program manager, Alyssa Guttner-Davis. Here, there's also an incubator based out of LA, one out of Fresno, and one out of the Bay Area. And obviously, where you've got incubators and entrepreneurs and startup companies, they need fuel, they need oxygen, and that comes in the form of capital. So the CEC actually had the foresight to build in a $25 million grant fund over the 5-year period to provide seed capital and follow-on prototype capital for the companies that get in. Cleantech San Diego, our company, Alyssa and I, we are the program managers for the Southern California Energy Innovation Network, but we've got 10 other partners that provide support and services to our entrepreneurs at no cost to the entrepreneurs. We've got the business and engineering schools from UCSD, SDSW, UC Riverside, and CSU San Marcos. They're helping our entrepreneurs with validation of their technologies and markets. We've got policy and regulatory guidance, assistance and expertise from the Center for Sustainable Energy and University of San Diego. And then we tap into, perhaps San Diego, one of San Diego's best known and most successful incubators, Connect, to help provide the business acumen that typically our technical entrepreneurs need, that assistance. And if you're not aware, Connect has recently connected with San Diego Venture Group as a single entity that's looking to take even a more entrepreneurial approach to connecting startups with investors to accelerate that commercial traction. And since we are San Diego-centric, we do have some organizations that are going to help us with outreach in the other counties that we serve. While Cleantech San Diego is interested in any startup companies that have a product or technology in any area of sustainability, the specific incubator program that we run, because it's funded by electric ratepayers, you have to deliver benefit to California electric ratepayers, and so these are the technologies that we're allowed to support companies within our incubator. As long as you've got an energy breakthrough technology that supports that mission, you have an office in California, you have a presence in one of the 4 counties that we serve, you are eligible to apply to our incubator. And you can see that we have open applications. You just go to our website, cleantechsandiego.org, and you can register there. So that's our introduction. The way we're going to run the session going forward, we've got the 3 entrepreneurs. We're going to do each of them give you just a quick overview of their companies, and then we're going to open up to Q&A. I'm going to ask a few questions and then open it up to you for what you're interested in, because we're here to help answer the questions you've got about Cleantech entrepreneurs. And so we'll start out with Dan Poirier from Nativus.
Thanks, Marty. I'm Nativus co-founder Dan Poirier, and my company is developing hyper-efficient air conditioning for residential and commercial applications. So we're a 5-year-old startup, pure hardware play in the very mature heating, ventilation, and air conditioning industry. Over the past several years, we've received support from the California Energy Commission's CalSeed program, as well as the National Science Foundation. So very simply, what we are doing is we are architecturally redesigning how an air conditioner operates. So what that means is we are creating what's called a rotary heat exchanger. We're taking a centrifugal fan, combining it with a heat exchanger element, and then we're rotating it. And when you rotate that heat exchanger, you're able to increase heat transfer efficiency while decreasing power consumption. So I will leave the tech there, and we can focus more on the why we are doing this. So currently, there are about 1.2 billion room air conditioners online globally, and over the next 30 years, it's assessed that about 3.5 billion more of these units are going to be coming online. This is primarily going to be in the developing countries of India, Indonesia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and this is going to be a huge problem in terms of power demand. So it would be like essentially having to add an entire United States worth of power generation capacity just to run these air conditioners over the next 30 years. So this is a massive problem that many of these countries are just now starting to understand. And you can imagine what that's going to do with the quality of life, with air pollution, having to build most likely coal-fired power plants in a business as usual scenario. So what we propose is a highly scalable first cost solution that matches first costs to what's currently out there, and create a product that can meet that room air conditioning demand. And so having that very aggressive vision of having the ability to produce maybe 1 million units a day through some type of global manufacturing facility over many, many years to meet this demand. But again, this is a big energy efficiency play on our part, and really looking at taking a decent chunk out of that 2 degrees C global temperature rise by bringing that down about 25%. So I'll leave it there, and then we can answer more questions later. Thanks.
Thank you. Turn it over to Cyrus. You're welcome to
just jump over there. Hi, I'm Cyrus Rustamji, founder and CEO of Southgate Technologies. We're actually a battery technology company trying to develop these next generation battery devices. We're all well aware of the challenges that face the world. We just got a good overview of it. So batteries are going more and more into electric vehicles and grid storage type applications. But they're in everything from our laptops to cell phones and whatnot. We're really aiming towards those larger scale type things like those electric vehicles to really curb that CO2 pollution and carbon problem that we have today. We're currently a pretty small stage company, just 4 full-time employees, but we're growing pretty quickly with a lot of the opportunities that are coming our way. We're lucky enough to be in California where there are a lot of those opportunities. So actually, just very briefly going over our tech. A battery to most people is just a little black box. You just get electrons out of it. Now, what people are doing around the world today, there's a global effort to put more electrons in that box, but keep them in there safely and have them operate at a higher power rate over a wider temperature range. So inside there, you have your positive cathode and your negative anode, and then in the middle you have this electrolyte. Every battery today has a liquid-based electrolyte in those devices. We're actually seeing the technology kind of plateau because it's electrolyte. It's actually holding back on next generation devices. It's just a bottleneck to developing a better technology. So a lot of people are actually moving into solid state electrolytes, which offer a lot of safety advantages, but their energy and cost performance is just not quite there. These things are going to be really expensive to make, and nobody wants to drive around a $200,000 Tesla in the next few years. So where Self-Aid Technologies comes in, we're actually the first and only company working in this really interesting space using these liquefied gas electrolytes. So much like propane for your barbecue, propane is a gas at room temperature pressure. We simply just liquefy that gas under a mild pressure to use that as our electrolyte solvent. And we see all sorts of interesting properties in there. And with that, here's just a snapshot of kind of where our technology potentially could stand versus your conventional lithium-ion. We can get about 2 times the energy out of this thing with improved safety. We all know our Samsung S Galaxies might be blowing up here and there, our laptop batteries going up in flames. No one's going to allow a next generation battery device to come onto the market unless they show pretty much none of these features. You want a much safer battery, especially with cars that are going to drive around in big grid storage facilities. And the temperature range of operation should be expanded. Currently, if you go skiing and put your cell phone down in the snow, you'll see that cell phone kind of turn off really quickly, just because the battery just does not like the cold. They'll shut down. So people are really working to improve that low temperature operation, as well as the high temperature, but the low temperature is really where the bottleneck is today. And in addition, you want these things to be low cost, so you better have very good material and manufacturing compatibility, I'm sorry. Self-Aid Technologies that really offers all these value propositions, and we're really working to allow this technology to expand into the market. And with that, I will leave it there. Happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Cyrus, turn over to John. So with the knowledge that 40% of the world's population, or roughly 3 billion people, live in some form of energy poverty, and the primary reason for this is the absence of a reliable power grid around the world, Uprise Energy has developed the world's first commercially sized mobile wind turbine that operates independent of a power grid or a fossil fuel. But probably more important than the portability of the machine is the machine's performance. And we've leveraged modern technology, modern electronics to create a system that generates power a multiple better than the incumbent technology. And specifically in the lower wind speed conditions that are commonly found where people live and work. And so what this relates to is a system, the entire unit folds up, ships in a standard shipping container. It can be towed by an ordinary pickup truck. And when you arrive on site, one person can set up the entire machine in just 1 hour. No site improvements, no heavy equipment. And what this results in is a machine that can power up to 20 US homes, a remote village of 150 or so people, or a good-sized job site. And for less than what we're paying in this room right here. I mean, do you realize that the utility power companies are buying power at 1, 2, 3 cents a kilowatt hour? But by the time it gets here or to your home, you're paying 40 cents a kilowatt hour. Well, we're eliminating that middleman, that distribution system. We're providing power direct to the customer at 10 to 30 cents per kilowatt hour, depending on wind speed. And one of the nice things about wind is it never changes in cost. But on top of that, we have our data layer that provides full telemetry, communications to and from the machine, autonomous operation, and these are IoT devices that can run any number of sensors, which I think this data layer is probably equally as exciting as the energy performance. Which makes this wind turbine uniquely qualified for a variety of markets, giving it a strong competitive advantage, leaving really no doubt that this is the right product at the right time for the grid's edge and beyond. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. All right, thanks to our panelists for those introductions. Now you at least have a flavor for the types of technologies and products and services that we're looking to bring to market. I'm going to open up the Q&A with just a few questions to just get a little more background information out, and then we'll turn it over to the questions that you've got. So just starting it out, and we'll start with Dana and go that way, and then we'll come back. back on the next one. So where did the idea for your company come from?
Yeah, so we started, my business partner, Matt, several years ago, he founded a geothermal company up in northern Nevada, and it was right at the height of the recession, unfortunately. And so when things like first cost and payback period come into play, you have to understand that people weren't willing to spend $40,000 or $50,000 upfront for a very advanced geothermal air conditioning and heating system, although they work great. So he decided to shut that company down and focus more on the kind of component level technology of an air conditioner, and really dig in and say, okay, ask the question, which I recommend everyone does, is go, okay, why do these systems operate so inefficiently? And we quickly discovered that it was this layer of air that has attached itself to the heat exchanger element of all air conditioners. And so what it really was a transition from a unscalable services company into a much more of a traditional tech R&D company to focus on the air conditioning side of things and really focus on first costs and scalability.
Excellent. Cyrus?
Yeah, so actually I was a PhD student over at UC San Diego, and like any good PhD student, you just read a lot of literature. So I came across some good papers on some interesting materials people are just doing fundamental studies on in electrochemistry, a lot of these gaseous-based materials. And kind of looked into it, I'm like, oh, that'd be interesting to put in a battery. Kind of a crazy idea, and everyone called me crazy for it. And so we had a little team get together and kind of look at it a little closely. Like, yeah, there's something here, it'd be worth looking at. If anything, it'll just get our PhD and we'll be on our way. It didn't really quite stop there. The tech actually worked pretty well. People were pretty impressed early on with the data and performance we were putting out. So it kind of just spun out there, and the company kind of just got ahead of us. Like, people put more interest in it, and we started winning a few grants here and there, and that's just kind of what happened. And we weren't really expecting it, but here we are today, and we're really excited to be doing it.
Great. Jonathan?
Yeah, well, for me, I think it was the Fukushima earthquake. That had a really big impact on me, and it revealed all the bad parts of nuclear power on the global stage. So with my background in renewable energy, I called up my co-founder and said, hey, I think we ought to look at getting back into the renewable energy market. And that's where the conversation started, and here we are today.
Excellent. So what you just told us was a little bit about how kind of the idea for starting the company came about. Now again, for people who are first thinking about getting into a startup, so now that you have the ideas and made a decision to move forward this way, how did you actually go about launching the company? Just the actual technical part of creating a company.
Yeah, well, our background in renewable energy was in wind, so that was the space that we were most familiar with. And then we studied what the world needs were, and we, with our experience in large utility scale wind, we were acutely aware of the constraints inherent in that market. And so we literally started by making a list of all those top constraints. And I think we came up with 40 items, and then set out to see if we could come up with solutions that would either eliminate or severely mitigate each one of those. And we did that. And in the process, we had certain performance metrics that we had to hit, and did some engineering work, and engaged a blade design study, and actually realized there was greater potential than what we'd imagined. And so at that point, we knew the project had legs, and we were off and running.
Excellent. Cyrus?
Yeah, so at the time, during my PhD studies, we had a small group of researchers working on it, but then a couple other grad students in our department kind of got wind of it, and they were taking a business course over at the radio school at UCSD. And they're like, oh, we just need a project to work on. Can we pick up your engineering project and kind of do like a go-to-market strategy? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, you do what you want to do. Not really thinking much of it. So they went off and they started doing all this research and built a business plan. It was kind of fun. Like, I was kind of learning all about this new business stuff myself with them. And then they kind of recruited along a few MBA students along the way, and then they joined our team early on, and then it kind of just snowballed from there. And then, we just all kind of got together and be like, all right, let's just actually give this a shot, and like start applying to these grants, like I mentioned. And that's kind of how it got started. And then we just, the attention just started growing on what we were working on, and couldn't really stop the momentum at that point. So really was just the team kind of just grew naturally above that, and that's kind of really what happened. We were as a team together that was figured, hey, we can do this, why not? So that's kind of just how it all started happening.
Great. Dan?
Yeah, for us, we actually approached some friends. They made quite a bit of money in the oil and gas industry, and that's kind of ironic there. But once we had the first 100,000, we told the story, And that's really what it was. It was just a story at that time. This is 5 years ago. But once we had the first $100,000 soft commit from them, we approached a law firm, Gunners and Detmer. Just find a firm that has experience with structuring deals for startups, and they got us set up as a Delaware C Corp, and we were kind of off to the races there. And then along the same lines, we got a convertible note set up, and we got the bank account, money in the account, and that's like the mechanics of starting the actual company. So it's really about finding that first investor and then putting all the administrative stuff to work. But don't let the admin stuff prevent you from starting the actual company. It's very much checklist form, and any reputable law firm will kind of walk you through that process to get it to the next stage.
Okay, great. If you go to some of the other sessions across San Diego Startup Week, I think as they kind of are coaching entrepreneurs from all different industries and technologies, one of the first things that they'll tell you that you absolutely need to focus on is customer discovery. You need to make sure that whatever product or service that you're looking to bring to market, there really is a market need, and that you're truly meeting the ultimate critical needs of the customer. And we refer to that as customer discovery. Can you each share some of the insights that you gained in talking to potential customers that may have either reinforced that you were heading in the right direction, or may have identified some of the things that you might have missed had you not done the customer discovery? And we'll go back this way, Dan.
Yeah, so I would say you want to identify pain points through customer discovery and then structure value propositions from that. So what people always say is, don't develop a solution and search for a problem. Find the problem and then develop that solution, because that's the right way to go through the process. But last summer we had the opportunity to be a part of the Cleantech Open Accelerator, and that was a good opportunity for us because it really forced us to do the customer discovery process. And having been in the company for 3-4 years at that point, we hadn't done that necessarily. We knew in a very mature industry that there's a need for air conditioning. It is there. There's energy efficiency aspects of it, but until you do that first person process of sitting down with someone, having that conversation, you'll be amazed at the information you get from them. We were some assumptions that we had in place were actually broken just by having a few conversations. And so you don't want to go too far down that some rabbit hole without having those conversations for customer discovery.
Yeah, so for us, our technology really started out as a low temperature battery. Our battery just has a world record performance at real low temperatures, so I thought, hey, there's a value proposition there. So we go around talking to people, talk to like NASA, people in aerospace industries, and they're like, yeah, no, low temperature is cool, but we can't use it unless you really give us a substantial advantage in energy. So we're like, okay, well, and then we go back to the lab and start working on other stuff, and soon enough, yeah, it kind of became apparent that we do have more energy in our cells as well. So then it really shifted our focus from advertising our battery as a low temperature battery to a high energy battery that just happens to have awesome low temperature performance. And that really opened a lot of eyeballs, and then people really got a lot more interested. So it's the same technology, it's just how you kind of go about advertising it to the customer, and then that really just starts the discussion. So you really have to focus on advertising it and gear it towards what they want rather than what it might have been to you at any given time.
Yeah, well, in our case, the portability feature came from one of our earliest customer meetings. We met with a customer and he laid out a use case that would really benefit from a portable machine, and a light bulb went off. And we went home, and that afternoon we took our wind turbine that was designed to fit into a shipping container, and we added a trailer to it. And so that was a big change in our in the technology. I mean, the technology really hasn't changed that much. From customer input, we were kind of the customer, having experienced those pain points ourselves, being in the industry previously. But to Cyrus's point, how you communicate what you have really evolved in meeting with customers, and just, frankly, I kind of poo-pooed the idea of going out meeting with customers, but having traveled around the world and met with customers on site, that experience is invaluable. And the ability to communicate and understand the customer needs, it's really important.
Okay, I'm going to ask the panel one more question. So those of you who have some questions, you're welcome to come on up to the mic here, and we'll start taking those after this one. But again, I thought, being in San Diego, being an entrepreneur, you know, with limited resources, small team available to you, it's important to take advantage of any other resources that might be available. And actually here in the San Diego region, there are a number of those. We really are, as you can see by San Diego Startup Week and the growth that it's had each year, you know, across all market segments, we've developed a community that's willing to share and help entrepreneurs and help accelerate that commercialization. So can each of you maybe mention some of the other local organizations or support, actually local, national, whatever, but where else have you gone with the limited funds that you've got as a startup to get some additional support, and what's been most valuable to you? Let's go back with Jonathan.
Well, locally, our involvement with Cleantech decision to the Southern California Regional Energy Innovation Network, mouthful, has been really valuable. It's opened a lot of doors for us to various resources throughout all the academic institutions and so forth. We were also had the good fortune of being included in the Evo Nexus incubator here in town. We're a proud graduate of that program, and we've been involved in some international programs that have kind of been a snowball effect that has built from what we started here locally and grown internationally.
Similarly, the San Diego Energy Innovation Network, CalC does like a local Southern California chapter type thing. Just those numbers are great. I mean, being on email lists, just seeing those emails come through, scrolling down them really fast and just getting over what's going on, and that really helps in building your connections, building your network, and going to these types of events is great. But for me in starting out, being at UC San Diego, they have a great little entrepreneur center there. They've changed the name since, but it used to be called the Von Liebig Center. That really helped a lot just in my education and then building your network with local angel investors or entrepreneurs and things like that, just to kind of learn from those kinds of people. So being a student there really helped out, but it's not like you have to be a student there. You just like walk right in and just sit down and start talking to people over there. And they're super helpful and encouraging and motivating. So that for me was really what started it all.
Yeah, we're a unique company in the sense that we have a presence in Nevada as well as down here in San Diego. So we kind of gather resources from where we can, and right now I think we're focused more on California in general and the kind of the national scale. But looking at San Diego, we haven't used the network down here to its full potential, and I think that's been more kind of on our side, just where we are in the technology development cycle. We're looking at San Diego as more of a approaching them, the industries down here with some type of demo stage or pilot project, and we're kind of just waiting for that to occur. But definitely, like everyone else has said, you have Connect, you have the Energy Innovation Network down here. Once you are you're tied in with that, you're able to see not only what's going on in San Diego, but across the state, and then across the on the national level, and that's really important because you don't want to miss those opportunities. So just stay connected, get in touch with Marty and Alyssa, and that will really set you up for success.
Yeah, that actually reminds me to point out that one of the interesting things, particularly for those of you interested in energy technology and startup, as part of this Energy Innovation Network that the California Energy Commission has set up, we're actually in beta testing stage of a statewide portal that all startups will be able to participate in. It's going to have a calendar that will list not only statewide events, but events all around. It's going to have California grants, national grant, there'll be a grant section. There'll be a section where, again, lots of startups want to participate in a grant or seek a grant, but they know they don't have the full wherewithal to actually even manage the accounting sides of it, and they really need to partner with somebody, or it would be better if they could partner with a university or another private company. So there will be on this website a partnering functionality that you'll be able to seek out partners to pursue grants together. And so we're expecting that's we're going to be doing a soft launch through the second half of 2019, but I'd say late 2019, early 2020, that's going to be a resource that's really going to be valuable to everybody out there. So keep your eyes open for that. It's going to be called the Empower Innovation Network. Let me pause for a moment. It looks like people either may not have had enough coffee to get up on their feet or may be shy. So So Alyssa will bring the microphone to you. Does anybody have any questions that you'd like to ask at this time?
Good morning, guys. You're Ryan with Skylar Technologies. Thanks a lot for speaking this morning. I have a question, a little bit less for you, Cyrus, but more for Jonathan and Dan. Can you guys talk a little bit about connectivity and how the data that's coming from the sensors and from your machines factor into both your product roadmap and potentially your business models in the future? I think you alluded a little bit to it, Jonathan. Thank you.
Well, yeah, data is huge. You know, we live in a data-driven society, and there's many parts of the world that have been kind of ignored from that because they haven't been connected. And so our technology, when you bring power into an area, almost anything is possible. And we have, you know, it was a natural fit to add those additional sensors and IoT features when we already were providing the telemetry and connectivity to the customer. So this IoT and data collection thing is a frontier that you know, I think that we're going to learn a lot as we get units into the field, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity there that is not even on our radar right now, but we'll discover it once we get out there. But I think data is huge.
Yeah, for the IoT play with us, we went to China last year, and when we sat down with a very large multinational firm, they were kind of making that transition into IoT and just understanding the importance of it, how data is related to energy efficiency. And how we looked at it was, what is the cost for that sensor? Once we found out that it was, you know, I think $2 or $3 to add a, you know, some type of sensor to a, you know, a smaller room air conditioner, then, you know, we thought that that was something that we needed to actually look at. But further from the societal benefits of, you know, you have air quality monitoring, so you can look at indoor and outdoor air quality. So there's, you know, data collection, then you can basically disseminate that to the people that are interested in collecting that data. So whether it's the utilities looking at it from a power gen or power consumption capacity for room air conditioners, or it's, you know, the EPA looking at it and going, hey, you know, these communities here, and here are having, you know, there's low air quality based off whatever issue that is. So that's kind of how we're looking at IoT, and it's definitely something that we're focused on, but you know, we're still kind of in the early stages of how we want to proceed with that.
And you know, let me make a comment to kind of hit that from a slightly different angle. As we have now been running our incubator for 3 years, and just last September did our first visit up to the Bay Area, to San Francisco and Silicon Valley, bringing some of our companies to meet with investors for, you know, potential investment in their businesses. What we learned within the, and it's not just the Cleantech industry, but when you talk to investors, you know, having a great technology idea for a product is great, but when they see a business that's purely product sales, so you sell a product to a customer, and once they have it, they don't need it. You know, maybe they'll buy a few more as they grow or as they get comfortable with it, but there's a finite market for units of product. But in this world of IoT, Internet of Things, and data analytics and cloud communication, if you can build in functionality, use the data to build in the data analytics such that there is a recurring revenue, that once you've sold the product, you can also provide some service or the data and get a monthly recurring revenue stream, you know, that makes your business much more attractable to investors. So you should definitely be looking for how to add that value stream into your overall product and service offering. Okay.
Great.
Other questions out here?
Hi, Bill Novak. Question for Cyrus. I heard your talk at the Battery Conference in Florida, and it was really exciting technology. And so it's cool to see you here. Two questions for you. One, do you see yourself as becoming a cell manufacturer? And two, if so, do you think you're going to be doing manufacturing in California, San Diego, or do you think you have to move somewhere else pretty quickly?
Sure. Well, thanks for recognizing me. That's pretty crazy that you were out in Florida as well. You're a battery guy too, then, I guess. Very cool. Yeah, so what we're actually looking at doing, because it's a brand new type of electrolyte and the manufacturing is entirely different, we really want to build out the manufacturing capability in-house. So a small pilot line is actually what we're developing over the next couple of years. Do about 500 cells a day, 18650 cells. So that would just really prove the manufacturability is feasible and cheap. And so with that pilot line, we can cater to low volume markets, so aerospace and things of that nature, low temperature type markets. And then after that, we'll probably just license it out or work with with a third party manufacturer. But so yeah, near term, we're definitely looking to manufacture right here in San Diego. But we know we're never going to be a gigafactory. We have a little nano factory that we're working on. That's probably going to stay at. We'll just see how well the technology develops and where it goes from there.
Good. Other audience questions?
Hi, I guess this is kind of for everybody, but I'd like to hear a little bit about the phases that each of you are in developing these technologies, and from ideation to proving your technology, and then actually going to selling, either selling units or distributing the tech. Can you just talk kind of where you are, what roadblocks you've hit on the way, and how close you feel you are at this point to actually going to full scale production or selling it?
Good question. Thanks. Who wants to start?
I guess I'll start off.
Okay, Sarah?
TRL-wise, we're kind of around like a 4-ish right now. Each step in our technology anyways, maybe everyone's technology's up here, it seems like an exponential step. So getting from a 3 to 4 is hard, and then 4 to 5 is like 10 times harder. And with that comes like a lot of permitting, and in terms of transporting batteries, that's who does that, and things like that. Doing a lot of safety testing just to get to that next TRL level. So that's kind of the stage we're at right now. We're just in-house developing full-on prototypes, basically. Small little MVP type devices that are full form, fit, and function, but it still needs a little bit more development work to just actually be safe enough to hand off to a customer. Yeah.
So we're actually just transitioning from being a full garage startup, literally in a garage, to I think we're closing on some commercial space, which is nice, but I would say we're probably around a TRL 5 and kind of maybe on that 6. It's tough, and kind of Cyrus alluded to the difficulties of that, but it's been a long kind of path in sitting there. And when you're dealing with actual materials, one thing you have to keep in mind is that supply chain. So when you're prototyping, you're building, you need to go out and source materials from places that you might not have looked at before. So for instance, when you have limited funds in a startup and you go, hey, we got to machine a complex compressor casing. Well, where do we go? Let's talk to a company in Maryland that came back and said, yeah, it's going to cost you $3,000 and it'll take us, about, I don't know what it was, like 2 months. So we're like, okay. So we contacted a company in just outside of Hong Kong. They're like, cost you $300 and you'll have it in 10 days. And so there is no decision there. You have to go with whatever that lower cost is. But as far as just developing that technology, building a spinning air conditioner in a garage without killing ourselves, pressurizing it. I mean, there was a lot going on there, and we did that. And last summer when we were going through strategic development talks with this company, they were pretty blown away that we actually did that. Now, it didn't work, and we didn't advertise it. We didn't tell them it's going to be the best thing ever when this thing is done. We knew what we were going to get, and it was something that worked, marginally, but there was a lot of room to improve. But yeah, I mean, the goal with the funding that we have now through CalC, through NSF, is to get that from a TRL 6 pretty much through to TRL 8, 9 phase.
Sorry, before you go, Jonathan, just to clarify, TRL stands for Technology Readiness Level. It's a term that was developed by NASA in the 70s, and it's supposed to help you understand, like, for mostly hardware focused things, what your stage of development is. And then now there's kind of a scale that runs alongside it that you can use for software, but it's like a helpful numerical system for understanding technology development milestones.
Yeah. Well, we built 2 prototypes that we've tested, and each model we've iterated on a number of times, and we're in the process of building units now that are going to be deployed for pilot projects. And it's, on one hand, we have a technology that is groundbreaking in many ways, and it represents new capabilities and features. And so because of that, it applies to a lot of markets. So generating letters of intent has been quite easy. We've got couple thousand orders on the books right now in LOIs. But on the other hand, when it comes to getting people to give you the hard money, you know, when you're promoting a product that is a magnitude better than what is existing, there's a good amount of skepticism, and people want to see working units in the field. And that is the real inflection point, and we're still, you know, just on the doorstep of that, of having a unit that's deployed in the field and it's been running for an extended period of time that we can point to. And you know, even though sound engineering, you know, nothing defies the laws of physics, any of that, people still want to see, you know, proof in the pudding. So that's where we're at. Yeah.
What is the you don't need it. That's right. Save you the trouble. What is the cost of each of your products?
$100,000.
We're looking to get a comparable or cheaper than today's batteries. So the Department of Energy has a very, not strict, but they have guidelines for battery technology, where they want that roadmap to go. So currently it's around $140 per kilowatt hour for batteries at the cell level. They have a goal of getting that down to like $100 per kilowatt hour. We project we can hit that performance at the gigafactory level. Again, our nano factory won't be doing it anytime soon.
Yeah, I think, you know, for us in China, they can produce a 1-ton, 12,000 BTU air conditioner for about $140, and that's cost of goods. So, you know, how we've been developing our technology has always been with, you know, the design for manufacturer in mind. So, in our system, we can actually eliminate a lot of excess materials. Like, we don't have 2 motors or 3 motors; we only have 1. And the way in which we can produce heat exchanger fins, it looks like it's going to be a very, very cost-effective way to actually do that. So one of the things that, like I said, we've been focused on is how, you know, what the cost of this product is going to be. And I think we can meet or beat what's currently out there based off the, you know, a comparable capacity air conditioning system.
Are you guys manufacturing complete units or components for other manufacturers?
So yeah, we are a complete system, which presents challenges with investors. We had a European HVAC company come over, and they're more of a component manufacturer, and they were really excited about us, but they couldn't find a good avenue into the company. They're still on the sidelines, but yeah, we're a complete package system as opposed to component level.
No. I had a question about end of life for your products. What are you guys thinking about in terms of when it's the end of life for the product? How can it be recycled? Can it be disassembled? What can you do with it?
Great question. I mean, we're talking about sustainability, right? So who wants to go first?
Well, in our case, I mean, in the wind industry, the typical model is to design around a 20-year life cycle. But when you look at the core materials that make up our wind turbine, steel, aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber, I mean, these are very durable materials that you know, should last a lifetime. So, well, I think it's very important to consider that. It's not something that we've put a lot of focus in, quite frankly, just because the durability and longevity that we see in our wind turbine.
Yeah, for us, end of life is really coordinated to a cycle life, basically. So for something like an electric vehicle, you want a few thousand cycles out of your battery. Something like a drone, like flying up there in the atmosphere, you know, 100 cycles is good enough for them. Something like a missile, well, just 1 cycle. If you're not going to blow up, right? So it really depends on what market you're aiming after, what that counter life looks like. In terms of recyclability, that is actually a huge topic of conversation in the battery community today. I mean, it hasn't been for all this time because small little battery, big deal. But when you start talking about 10,000 of these in 1 car, and then you got thousands of those cars out there, that's a lot of batteries. And there are rare earth metals that go in there that you want to recycle, and those cost a lot of money, they're expensive. So recycling, there will be a lot more recycling opportunities for batteries in the coming future. Our technology in particular actually is actually a little easier to recycle in a lot of ways. I won't get into the details of that, but that's definitely one of our value propositions for the end of life there.
Yeah, for us, so, you know, an air conditioner here in the U.S. maybe is in operation for 7 to 8 years. Over in India, based off, you know, the conversations I've had with those individuals, maybe it's 5 years depending on the environment and, you know, how frequently you're actually operating that system. So there's a couple things with air conditioning that's unique. One is, yeah, how do you recycle it? So there's the material aspect of it. And in our case, we're really focused on having fewer materials so there's less to recycle. But the biggest thing with air conditioning is the actual refrigerant. So that's why there's a big push right now to move away from, there's almost like this jump from traditional technology into advanced non-vapor compression technologies. We are a vapor compression technology. I would say we are a more advanced vapor compression cycle, which is nice because that helps with costs and materials, and I think the commercialization strategy helps us there. But when we would look at air conditioning now and how people recycle them overseas, they're just going to go. They're going to cut those refrigerant lines. And they're going to vent that high global warming potential refrigerant out to the atmosphere. They're not going to go through a standard process of collecting that. So getting that refrigerant back and then back to the source so it can be properly disposed of is important. Unfortunately, not everyone does that. So what we're looking at is having a packaged system where you don't work on the system necessarily. You don't open it up. You're not tweaking on it. You're not going to potentially vent refrigerant. And utilizing a refrigerant for us that is a very low global warming potential. Ideally, there's some stuff coming out now that's comparable to CO2. So which is global warming potential of 1, which is nice. So that can help us, I think, develop that and play into our sustainability strategy.
Okay, any last questions from the audience? Going once, going twice. Okay, so I thought it'd be good just to wrap up our session by just having each of the entrepreneurs, so just through your entire experience from start to where you're at today, any final insight or aha that you had along the way that you could maybe share with the group here so that they can learn that before they have to go learn it the hard way. Start with Dan.
Yeah, it's cliche, but it really is a journey, and you're gonna have to stomach it because we've been going at this now for 5 years, and it's been a really long process. I would say for every piece of good news or encouraging news, you're gonna have 5 to 10 pieces of very discouraging news. So you could raise 50 grand in the morning, and by the afternoon, you're already in a bad mood. That's just how quickly it comes. So, the highs are few and far between, they're short-lived, and the lows are, it's really depressing sounding, to sound that way, but it's a slog, and so you gotta be able to stomach that for years on end. And I think, if you just have that kind of mental capacity of just understanding that 3, 5, 7 years to see where you are. But the coolest thing is, with Cleantech, you can rest assured that you're actually doing something that is really, really valuable, and if you stick with it, you could have a great, potential there. So maybe it's not the next social network, and you can tell it's hard. There's only 20 some odd people in this room right now, and I'm sure the other rooms are full. But that's just the nature of this industry. So it is a long process, but it will be rewarding, and hopefully it will be successful.
Yeah, I really couldn't put it better myself, actually. Perfect. Yeah, I guess I would just add a couple comments. The team is the biggest thing, really. I mean, I know that's also cliche to say, but get a good team around you, good engineers or whatever it is around you, as well as advisors. The advisors are going to be a much bigger help than you might realize it early on. They'll just, for me anyways, I'm coming from my background in engineering lately, they really taught me the vocabulary and the lingo of the business area. What's a Series A? What's a cap table? I have no idea. What's a pro forma? What are you talking about? Just all these words and terms and business vocab that I had no idea what they were a few years ago. I'm still learning a lot every day. So don't put that underneath you. Just ask a lot of questions and figure those things out, because you will be needing them. And just try to keep a healthy work-life balance. It's tough. Obviously, you're working all the time. But as much as you can, just take that little time off to relax and do whatever you enjoy, whatever activity that might be. It's tough, but you got to keep that in mind.
Okay, John.
Yeah, I agree. Dan, I think Dan presented it pretty well. Early on in this journey, I use this word journey, I would get really excited and then I'd get really down in the dumps. And so, what I learned quickly was to try and stabilize my emotions. So, you know, if you don't get too excited about something, if it doesn't happen, you don't end up, you know, too far in the dumps. You just try and stabilize that. And, you know, and then also talking about getting your company set up the right way in the beginning, you know, get hooked up with a good reputable law firm, go through, set the solid foundation that you can build off of, because that is the foundation that is the basis for your company for eternity. And so doing that right in the beginning is hugely important. And you know, pick something that you believe in, because it's not easy. And you know, knowing that you're going to do something good that's going to make a difference, that's going to be important in this world, that has been the driving force. It is, you know, when I wake up and, you know, all the blood, sweat, and tears, that's what helps me, you know, continue on. So.
Can I just really quickly add to that as well? Yeah, getting a good lawyer or corporate foundation, that's key. Three things: you need a good corporate lawyer, a good IP lawyer, and a good accountant. Pay a little extra money to get the good ones. Just don't get someone that's kind of runs their own thing on the side chat or whatever. That will set you up for success later on. So it's well worth the money.
And the other thing is, you know, not all money is good money. You know, it's as much about the relationships and the people that you're getting involved with. That's probably more important than just getting some money in the bank account. So early on, when you're desperate for some capital, it's tempting to take money, but just keep in mind that it's not all money is good money. And finding the right money is very important.
Great, thank you so much for your insights there. I just want to kind of close to follow up my opening comments and make sure that you don't just take them out of context. On the one hand, I said great energy industry undergoing disruption, forces of decarbonization, decentralization, digitization that customers are demanding is driving that. In California, again, we've got greenhouse gas laws that are driving it. It's not just California, it's not just Hawaii. I did a presentation a couple months ago and just was doing some research to prepare for that presentation. Numerous states, numerous countries, numerous companies, Apple, Google, Walmart, all have 100% renewables goals, all are setting goals for transportation electrification. It's happening everywhere, it's happening big, it's going to be huge. And so while there are the sobering challenges of the day-to-day grind, the opportunity in this particular market segment is huge, and welcome the rest of you to join us. So please join me in thanking our panelists today.
Just a quick reminder to rate this session in the Volvo app. We're told to tell you that. So I think, yeah, so they just take a minute. It should be pretty quick. And we appreciate you coming out. So thank you.
Thank you.